Tiki Tuya Dunga Seki Tablam Tanga Jugin Nanglo Samba Chi Mobot Nang Samlin and Zo Nang Samlo Dene and then Tiki Tuya Dunga Sedi on Tushin Tupu Wore. Tinezada Nang Samlo Tin Sedia Nang the Samlogi that Jiggy Lebi Gaviritia Yargeta and then Jiggy Jiggy Sem Rashin Eagle Dunga Samlo Ma Mevasoyagi. That he tablam Yamsulenia Jimba Deleda, Lamrim Dangbo can say, Niba can sing, Tinigel Yamsulega, some not Jimba Mason Shadi, that Lamrim said, that the Digor Mashugore, that Digor should do kissing on the down on the Lamrim. That's actually Lamrim Chimbodelia and Jeremy Chikima, Kumbate, Lamrim Chimbot and Jing that Chung says, Sumi, none of that Jing Digor Shugore. That Lamrim Jingo Sumbi Kabla, that is in Jeremy Chigi, and Jacho Lamrin Delia, Lobsang Chevaina, and the Garriors Chewashida Deba Chewashi Yores, and the Gasore. Sunra Tamje Gamedo to be Chewasata, and the Sunra Tamje Tamado Chevi Chewa, and give you combat Delato to be Chewa, and the Nijo Chimbo Rangaso to be Chewa, Sitini Chewa Shishe, and during my Shuading, Sunra Taja Gamedo to be Chewa said you should Sarche, that during at my Shuadi, and Sunra Tamje Tamado Chevi Chewa, Satigor Mashuere.
Good evening. All of us want to abide in a state of lasting happiness, never punctuated by even a moment of pain or misery. And of the varying methods to achieve such a state, relying on the material world, trying to dominate or take care of our material world, this is a method that cannot lead to lasting happiness. But on the other hand, focusing on our inner world, our way of thinking, transforming our way of thinking, this is the method that will lead to lasting, stable happiness. And the way to do that is to identify the minds which are virtuous and find out how to strengthen and habituate oneself to that, and then do so. And going along with this is identify those minds which are non-virtuous, those which lead to harm to oneself and others, and turn away from being under their influence. And that is, in very brief, the topic of this entire text. This text, Lamrim, is the graduated stages, to expand the title, the graduated stages to train your mind in order to attain enlightenment. So that's an expanded way to express the meaning, or the meaning of the title. And the author of this text, Lama Tsongkhapa, composed three different Lamrim texts: the Song of Eloquence, the Song of Spiritual Realization, the middle Lamrim, and the Great Lamrim. This is the middling Lamrim, the middling stages, or the middle length disposition on the graduated stages that lead to enlightenment. And we're now currently in the section called The Greatness of the Dharma, and that has four greatnesses. The greatness of understanding all teachings as not being mutually exclusive. That was on page 13 of our text. Last week we started on the second, the greatness of seeing all of the Buddhist teachings as spiritual instructions. And the third will be the greatness of allowing you easily to discover the victor's intent. And the fourth will be the greatness of naturally stopping serious misdeeds. So we are on page 15 with the second of the greatnesses, and we'll continue there tonight.
Nyoba gawa meba and chasa nyamsu lengwa ya changwa la pando yoba and jigi joksu chungwa de hagowa de la nisonra tenje gamedo topa ase hagowa topa la hagowa la chisa gamedo hagowa chisa lamdrin de la nyamsu len nyamlen cheba na ani sanji yusungbi sonra kane chi ne ya anjigi sanji 고방 토발라 간사 지기 sanji 고방 토발라 대차상 지 냠는 제반에 판도 여바지나 sanji 고방 토발이야 팽기 여바 지기 Troxu yobadi, and my Lamrim Telet in Hago to Gures, Dinig Lamrim Hago, Dinig Nubachi or Esor, Jen Chevasi. Just a Dinig Telet in Anzuki, Tina Hago Adita, Dinig Topa Dida, and you get sooner that you can make Topa set to some more water.
Last week we concluded looking at the first of these greatnesses, the greatness of understanding all teachings as not being mutually exclusive. The meaning of that is that we come to understand that everything that the Buddha taught was taught with the intention to benefit beings. And in fact, every teaching does only benefit beings. It does not harm benefit beings. So there's not a contradiction that some teachings are not to be cultivated, whereas others are. This is a mistake. All teachings benefit. Every teaching then should be accomplished. One should train one's mind in every topic that the Buddha taught. There aren't some that we should abandon or turn away from or look down on and think they're not suitable for me. Rather, all the teachings were taught so as to benefit beings, and therefore all trainings should be engaged in. This needs to be known and understood. And that was the meaning of the first greatness.
Sanji Yukoban Tobala, Tabachimbu, Yamlet Chinajigiri, and it Jiggy, Yandeda, Rangel, Sung Dijaka, Tesolo Lobsang Cheku, Mare, Seda, and the Nigi, and Sanga, Durji, Yamlet Jebala, Tanga, Sanga, Yamlet Chinajigiri Madon, and Doshan, Sonji, Tiki, Yamlet Chokoya, and Sukoya, Yomares, Jason Sanjo Tobala, and Dinyamlenga, and Yamlet Jebena, and Sanjo Tugri, and Jisa, Diso Yamlet Jebena, that Dota didn't Yandu, Rangel Sumbushunti, Paul of George, Yamlet Jangbaina, Dusuko, Trolares, and begin some of the Yumi Saravada Dineza, and Dine Mares, Jisan Sanga, Durji Tipi, Lam Yamlin Chine, Sanjo Toba Jebena, Yandu, Ranjata, and the Castle. Chasan Yamlen Jekugures, Shingugures, or that Shingugures. Gobi Gimsen Gare Labna, Sanji Goban Toedi, Gari Donal Tugore, Garich Dondarel, Semjan Pando Duya is Donal Sanji Goma Tukushiguru Asur. Semjan Pando Duyala, Tavachimbe Gaza, Yanyala Pandogene, Yandura Ranjada, Jandala Pando Magina, and Semjan Tamjela Pando Chigomar was, this Sanji Gopan Sanji Dondamares. To go matters. Chisan Sanji Goban Tovala, Simjan Tamjila Pando Jobza, Yandu region de la Pando Joa, Ranger region like Pando Chegore, Tabachim region le Pando Chegore, Dinashin, Risumi Madubi Gaza Kanji le Pando Chegores. Pando Chevala Shingugores, Consulia, Benyantugi, Gansaji region de la Consulia, Lam Yamne Tembala, Consugu. Deba Nash Dimping and Lamir, Namshati, Shingure, could the Dimpore, so some machine quality Yomares, and the Rangela Dares, and Chazan Teshich, Chazan Dimp by Din Shingure, Shimbala, Den Shimbala, Rangi Shingo, Rangi Shimbala Lobsang Chigores, the imagination Yomaras, the Chik, Gumsen Rushi, the Jacobi Gumsen Kawameba, Panchichi, Pando Yoba, and Jimbe Gumsen Chikche, and Jignem. Sanji Goban Tobala, Che Tam, Chingu or Mother, my kin not Sanji Goban Toyamar, Chazan Yandu Lamir, Namda, Rangel Lamir, Rimbe, Namjatiki, my kimba, and Sanga Dorje Tibi, Lamjigu, Yamnijin, Sanji Goban Toyers, Yomares, Chazadi, this Sanji to Sanji, the Che Tam Kimba Chagomar was. Chazad and Garson Yandu Lana, Rangel Lamir, Namja Shingomar, Chazad Diniki Yomares, Chazan Sanji Goban Tobala, Chazan, and the Yamlin Jeba, Ina Jigi, Pento, Mado, Yama, Essage. On those Chinanji, how go is, how go and the naked Chazan Pembe, Gansaji, Sanjawala, Chazan Yamlin Jogoba, Pando Yobaji, how goes on a Suratan Kameto Bata. Tabachimichi Yamne Jeba, Ranji Lam Yamne Jevala Gawa Mindus, Gawa Yomar, Sanga Dujiti Belam, Yamne Jeba, Doni, Due Namcha Yamne Jebala, Gawa Yomar, Essage, or the Hago to Guri, Essage. Kissing on to share the Digo, share that.
Further, last week when you were looking at the first of the four greatnesses of the Dharma, the greatness of understanding all teachings as not being mutually exclusive, that, in other words, that there aren't any that one should exclude. Where this is perhaps of more relevance to us, how we should approach this to understand the intent of this topic, is that us being here shows an inclination to the Mahayana Dharma, an aspiration to arise as a bodhisattva, to generate bodhicitta and become a Buddha for the sake of others. So if one has this inclination towards the Mahayana, there is a possibility to think, I want to become a bodhisattva. Therefore, teachings which are not directed at the attainment of bodhicitta and at the stages of training of a bodhisattva, I don't need those. The the teachings that are directed primarily at hearers and solitary realizers, so the Theravada style of practitioner, I don't need those, because I'm not aiming for the goal of a hearer and solitary realizer. So those teachings of the Buddha, they are not for me. I am only interested in the Mahayana. I only need to train in the Mahayana. This is a mistaken way of thinking. The other mistake that one may well make is thinking, I hear that the tantric path is the fastest path to enlightenment. That is what I'm most interested in. Therefore, sutra teachings, don't need to bother with them. I can put those aside. I'm only going to engage in tantric teachings, in training in tantra, and everything to do with sutra, I can put that aside. This too is a mistaken way to think. Here we need to remind ourselves of two key points. Firstly, as I mentioned in the previous segment, everything the Buddha taught, he taught to benefit beings. We are a being, we will benefit from everything that the Buddha taught. All the teachings, whether of the hero type of practitioner, the solitary realizer type of practitioner, or the bodhisattva type of practitioner, all of those will benefit us. And therefore, we should cultivate them within ourselves. There are none that should be excluded. They are all rather complementary. They are not in any way contradictory. And secondly, a Buddha necessarily knows all phenomena. There is no Buddha who does not know the trainings of hearers and solitary realizers, although a Buddha necessarily has perfected the bodhisattva path. The Buddha did not do so by excluding, or no Buddha perfected the bodhisattva path and attained enlightenment by excluding trainings of the hearers and solitary realizer paths. Those needed to be known as well. And why? Because of that initial reason that I gave. Everything the Buddha taught was to benefit. So therefore, the Buddha, in order to benefit beings, or the bodhisattva trainee to become a Buddha, in order to benefit beings, needs to know the teachings that are most suited to those of a hearer inclination or a solitary realizer inclination, so that the aspirant Buddha, the bodhisattva, can guide beings who have an inclination that differs from their own. So for these two reasons, recognizing that everything the Buddha taught was to benefit beings, and therefore those who aspire to attain enlightenment for the sake of others needs to know all the teachings and know them at a profound level so as to be able to guide others. That's the first reason. And the second is, without doing so, enlightenment is not achieved, because a Buddha has to know all topics in order to benefit all beings. Therefore, part of the training of the bodhisattva that will lead to the attainment of enlightenment is training in the hero and solitary realizer path, so as to guide those who are inclined to it. In this way, one comes to recognize that the first of the four greatnesses of the Dharma, understanding that all teachings as not being mutually exclusive, or in other words, there are none that should be set aside or seen as not relevant for me or a waste of time.
Pandita Ribe Nangale Kabagor, Sakasan, Jaribada, Samaribada, Nadon Ribada, and Me Soriba, and then Kosore, Soripati, Shingures. Just a Kavacha Gores or just a Denzigi, Shendin Drubu, just a Sanjago Botobala, just a men you go up with Shingo, men Jewish Shingo, and then Jigge. Jaripati Shingo, Samaripa Shingo, and they got sorry, but so Suege, Shingo, Chasati Shingo, the cousin Shendin Duberu, Shendin Dubela, Desugitone, Kashelian, Cheshem Moja, Kashelia, Mingi Lobsang Dorje and Pa, Jig Pandochen, Jig Jada, and Kashelian, sorry, but so the news, Sotango, but love judge. The Chasana so Shingo, just a Desula Cabache, what it says, the Sungo, right? Just a dinner. Ribene ala ma keba machena sanyo ko top tu mare so je sa sanyo ko top ala ribene ala keba janggu re so je sa dene janggu we na tamni nyan de gyu shong da ran je shong da dene ge chung cha sa shin gu do de.
And this point can be deeper understood by recalling what we looked at in the previous section on pages 11 and 12, which were the 5 areas of knowledge. So here, the practitioner, he was encouraged to gain knowledge not only of the Buddha Dharma, which is one of the five knowledges, but also that of grammar and logic and medicine and craft. So these, one would think, don't necessarily have so much to do with gaining knowledge of the Buddha Dharma, with transforming one's mind and progressing towards enlightenment. But the Bodhisattva, with a sincere and overwhelming wish to benefit beings, will want to benefit them in any way possible, will want to work with beings, interact with beings in a way that matches the particular disposition of beings. So those who have no interest in the Buddha Dharma, the Bodhisattva will not ignore them, will not neglect them, but will interact with them in a way that that matches their particular personality, and that may be through medicine, it may be through other skills. So therefore, we see from this illustration of recalling the 5 areas of knowledge, the Bodhisattva, striving to become a Buddha, a perfected being who knows all objects of knowledge, will have a very broad education so as to benefit the broadest number of beings. So when recalling that, it makes it completely obvious that there is no Dharma topic that is to be excluded when even non-Dharma topics are to be gained knowledge of.
Dumzero Karasungros and Kashyaman Jungore, Chesa, Tangan to Tabachim Church, Tammy Nyanda Rangi to be treating at Koyama, Jango Yomarson, Tongjun Dangordin, Chubungalis, Sagor, Ejere, Dipachimburis, Dinaja Dangan to Dunyam Jera, Sanga, said Pachango, Tawa Yomar, Deep Pando Yomarson, the Koya Yomarson, Bedustin, some Tavena, then Tongjun Dang Chubungalis, Sagores, Chubun. Nado. Parjintepe Nyamlin Chekere, Chesa Sanga Dorje Tabasia di Goya Yomar, Jango Yomar, Disu Tata Mare, Sebi, Dushin, sometime in a Chubon, Sagore, Ejere. Dina Dang Sanga Dorje Nyamlin Chekere, Disu, do the Genamja, the Jango Yomar, Anzolia, Pando Yomare, this is sometime in a Dushin Chubon, Les, Chesan Dipachimbo, Chubon, Les, Dipaset Pema, Dipachishore, Chubon, Les, Sagores, Chesan Sosugi, Nyamlin J. Matube in a chick. Dusine and Tonchun Dada Goya Yomar said, some thank you, Marejere. Chizadan Zugi, Chasan Jangu or the Inayanchik Sosugi Dudu, Sosugi Nubada, and Dusu the Babegi, Jan Tuptamatu Kabayunguri in Eda, Sosu Gang Jamba, the Huda, Karala Jangina, Dilobjon J, and Jandalia, and Goya Yomare, Dipando Yomarsebi, Patonchun Dada, Disam thank you, Mares, Chazan Sosugi, Jan Matu Gimsenjine. Dine Jeban, Sosolia, Divachimosagores, Chesa Dinere, Chesa Jansu Lamrim Yamlin Jebana, Denige Chasan Jangoba, the Haku, Semeng by Nigris, Chesan Pando Yoba, Doguris, there's not the Chobong ladies out to Sagmares or that. Don't that the new body did it, don't that the Kizinti, Judy.
So to put this point that we concluded with last week, this first of the 4 greatnesses of the Dharma, to summarize this then. What we are being advised by Je Rinpoche at the outset of the text to guard our mind against is a bias, seeing some Dharma topics as worthy of our endeavors and others not so much, a little beneath us. Here we need to guard ourselves against this attitude of looking down or deprecating on particular Dharma topics. And this can be expressed for differing individuals in different ways. Some may look at the Theravada teachings and say, no need for me, I'm interested in the Mahayana. Others may look at the Sutra teachings and say, not for me, I'm interested in the Tantric vehicle. Or vice versa. Some may look at Tantra and say, that's not for me. I'm only interested in the Sutra teachings. So these are all illustrations of perhaps the gravest of misdeeds, the abandonment of the Dharma. This looking down, belittling, deprecating a certain section or topic of the Dharma. This is a grave misdeed and serves to create deep obstacles. So here, this is what we are being guarded to against. This is what we're being advised to guard our mind against being under the sway of such an attitude. What we're being guarded against, what we're being advised against, is to guard our mind against an attitude, because we may well have limitations in terms of our time and our capacity. That's okay. That's one thing. But one shouldn't be influenced by an attitude of looking down on certain teachings of the Buddha.
Molam jaya ni dumbe tanya da maomba na de gobling it is jetu chi de ni maomba ni tin jetu ba chi jetu ba sho sen bi molam jaya da on du sine dumbe tanya na molam ja wores ma da ni ji ko ko ya ma de pando ya ma ji gi ma sa de ji go ma de si san ti ne za da de ne ga blang ji ma tu ba na maomba na ni ti ni nyam len jetu ba cha sa du nyam len jetu ba sho yong wa sho si bi molam jaya da maomba na ni de ji gi sen bi de ko dumba du sta da de ni molam ja wores.
This is an important point that was made at the start of our text, so it's important everyone has this clearly. We need to ensure we do not look down and push away any of the Buddha's teachings, but see them all as something we need to engage in. We may well have some restrictions on doing so in terms of time and capacity. That's okay for now. But we should certainly not look down on any teachings and see them as not worthy of us not needing to engage in them. Rather, if we see that we do have time or restrictions in terms of capacity, then we should generate an aspiration that we overcome these, that we do have sufficient time, that our capacity is developed. So generate such an aspiration, a yearning to engage in the topics of the Dhamma that for whatever reason we cannot right now. So make prayer, or rather to express it as this, have this sincere aspiration that if either I cannot access certain teachings or I haven't developed the sufficient foundation for certain teachings, whatever it may be, may I overcome these obstacles and thereby be able to engage with those teachings. This is the appropriate attitude.
Sunrab tamche tamga do go wala ser sheba dangsa.
Now let's continue in the text. So we are 2/3 of the way down on page 15, coming to a quotation from the great Jürgen Jangchup Rinchen. Someone who has reached certainty about a pithy guidebook cannot be said to have mastered the instructions, whereas this can be said about someone who understands all of the scriptures as instructions.
지자다 된거 송라 탐제 담가도 체비 체와 세디로 지자 송라 탐제 담가도 체위 체와 세도 다 송라 탐제 담가도 차 세데 간치 라그리 세지 지자 단다들라나 딜라게도 나줘바 안에 자주 린친지 고롱기 가르송고라스네 지자 담가 낭신 추바시고 그래서 낭신 추바시고 그래서 낭 담가라 나진 추바세 고그레세 제가 담가라 나진 추바세도 산지유 송셰비 송차상기 단다 디 하고 가지고 그래 하고 그래서 나진 추바 하 먹어나 안에 나진 추바 말이야 하고 그래서
What this is discussing, or is about, is coming to the recognition, because we are now in the second of the greatnesses, to understand that all of the Buddhist teachings, or the scriptures, are to be understood as personal instructions, or related to as personal instructions, or pith instructions, or practical instructions. And what this means is that someone needs to come to know or understand or reach certainty with regard to the Buddha's teachings.
차상 송럽지 차상 하고 가지고 그래라든지 가르송을 상예기 송간의 지인이야 차상 안에 단달라 상지고바 도비실 송바 장자리에서 송가시 무수 안에 상지고바도 탑람 땜바 송가시 무수 탑라 상지고바 탑라 땜바 매는 유네 안 탑라 상지고바 도비실도 탑람 땜데 송샤바 장자지 지선 니네기 상지 송간의 지인이야 상지고바 도비실도 탑람 땜바디 하고 그래서 또 그래서 나전 추바지 뒤또 그래서 그래.
The reason that all the Buddha's teachings are to be known, understood, is because everything the Buddha taught, he taught in order for beings to attain enlightenment. And with many of the teachings, this is abundantly clear. These were teachings explicitly presenting how to attain enlightenment. With others, it's not manifestly clear, but nevertheless, that is the implicit meaning.
다디네 비유 다시 나전 추바셔야 된 간이스 레기스네 비유붐 락틀 잠실라 네바네발레 미스르기 있어다. 된다 하고 와서야지 비유붐 락틀 잠실라 네바네발레 미스르기 있어다. 비유붐 시도 슝 지란 직은 슝 슝 통제 디 하고 와실라 오늘 담가라 나전 추바 라기베스네 딜라기 마레스 베네 락테스도 달라 락테스도 충충지 레블레브로 충충지르와다 다디 딜레 사진의 체르와다 제가 충충지 쳐다 아다디 슈레샤다 샨타디디 아니 지그 차상하고서 선배는 노주레시 다 먹어 먹고라디어스 디니기 락테 나전 충충마도 통요 마레스 제가 디잠기 상기유 수럽 탐제기 된다디 하고 투요 말다 하시월다 제가 미지지다 나전 추바세디 상기유 송럽디 송간디 지나야 상기유 고번 투베 쳐도 탑롱외는 유비고네 땜바데 하고 그래서 디 하고 와다 나전 추바래 그래서 제자디 슝충충지 통통하지 니 된다 오신도 아당아 차사 하고서 디 리소스 선배는 디디고 말레스 제가 비우금 락틀 잠실에 네바네발라 미세 시디 데네실라 아나 상지 유소라 타제 가메도 또 발라게 말레스 월다.
Someone who has reached certainty about a pithy guidebook cannot be said to have mastered the instructions. So what's a pithy guidebook we could understand as a small volume of instructions that one could hold in one's hand. So just a small, light book, as opposed to, if all the Buddha's teachings were laid out, they would be vast. But one says, no, what I have here is sufficient. But all of that, not necessary. What I hold here, contains the essential meaning. This is sufficient. A person who makes such an error, who mistakes may perhaps the volume of instructions that they can write onto the palm of their hands as being the very essence of the Buddha Dharma and therefore being sufficient, they will never come to understand the meaning of the Dharma.
지산다 대시 손럽 단제 담가도 담가 나선 취바세데 가들라서 손럽 탐제 담가도 고와래 세르서 시아바다 지산 손과 탐제 산지 송 탐제 담가세데 산지 고방 특별시도 담가 인바디 지산 냠수 랭고바디 디하고와딜라 지산디 디 차상 간에 송바 산지 송 간에 신나 디 차상 오다디 산지 고방 특별시 송바레디 무엇을 디된 요래디 무엇을 때문에 윤이 디된 바요서 두시네 다 산지 송 간에 신나 산지 고방 특별시도 탑람 땜바 인바디 하고 그래서 지산 디 하고는 담가 인바디 산지 고방 특별시 담가라는 랍자로 지산 랍자 지산 산지 고방 특별시 탑람 땜바다 하고 와들라 다 손라타제 가메도 그래서 담화도 샤와세 되는지 고고래서 되는지 라그래서 올라.
Whereas this can be said about someone who understands all of the scriptures as instructions. So just before I come to Genla's commentary, as an aside, wherever you see here and elsewhere the word instructions, or perhaps two words, one of which is instructions, there are two Tibetan words which are translated in many ways: pith instructions, spiritual instructions, oral instructions, practical instructions. They're translated in many ways. What it means is oral teachings, oral advice, like it's been given in an environment like this, in a small group or a large group. These are instructions. So often you'll see pithy instructions or pith instructions, like we have here, a pithy guidebook. So understand it's all referring to the same thing, just translated in different ways, and it refers to oral teachings, whether one-on-one or in a large group. Okay, now to come to Genla's commentary. Whereas this can be said about someone who understands all of the scriptures as instructions. So it can be said that someone has reached certainty of the Buddha's teachings when that person has understood that all of the Buddha's teachings are actually instructions for themselves to put into practice. That these are not two separate things, the Buddha's scriptures and spiritual instructions or the oral teachings, but you rather understand that these all what one finds in the text and the sutras are actually also spiritual instructions.
안도시 안디네 자당한 저기 지단 안저 저기 가비 송취 지람을 지 송취 쉬시 쉬네 진한 냠냠님이 진바로 집에 지 송용도 발바 소술야 지게 배 대바로 제 시우로 시계시네 안치기 될이야 돈이 둔바다 대바다 시우시 다인사다 되었직다 되니셔서 되어서 하고도 다 시우지게 내가 다 지게 되니게 내수 지금 냠랭이 진바 차사 하 먹어와 되니게 제 되었직 되니스 샘슈로 시우 팔아 준 거로와 대량한 지게 내중 마소나 내중 직대식 부서라지 인간도 집에지 자고래 ben에 자투 여러와 상나라샤도 아메칼라든 코 쇼바라 중중으로 기여돼 배고 딱 할람마서는 그런 프로젝트도 강 제대로 된 제게 되는 쇼바지 헬로 직갑을 그 풀을 줘야지 풀로 누구로와 제산디 프로젝트 코 쇼바디다도 프로젝트 쇼바디 tempo chayo mares jesa dinman korang samna nga chi phur tha shi gu ta jensar sam ji ligor de ine khol jen tha de yo mares dine phur jo ba ne wal ma sa shine phur ma da jine ne ko nya ne cha ba ja da dine gi shu ga ya buddha dine gi ji ge so je so ye gi so la nya nga yo res jesa dine za di phur ya di da da cha go mares ta ko chang nan ba shok ba da cha sa ji 게 쇼보디 약보 풀이야기 숙세 당연도 그런 분들이 걸어와서 인디나신다 송주에 장아주지도 예정으로 직직 람상기는 내수 차사 하 먹어서 다들 당하 냠nen차 두고서는 파 구교가 직 도와서 구교나 도와되네 니 안에 냠nen 딱달에 두 말에서 푸된 뭐 용구 말에서 지산디 도교 말에서 이제 배로 디셔거래 지산디네 자다 당보 다 지금 봐 장도 약보제 차상은 유여봐 약보제 안 디제네 디제와 디제네 디제와 디제레 다 강아 되는 채는 되는 삼는 되는 땅 거라서 유야와 야보 제제 되네게 고 망실 마서 야보 제 규차서나 아니 고야 아니 구결 봐줘제 참가나 진진 아니 곰주 보래 세지 되네 송고래 딩한 저기 라메기 마 지콜 남가 제다데 두시네 라메기 딩한 저 되네 송고를 받네.
So here I want to share with you spiritual instructions that are quite commonly given to students. And that is, when you receive teachings, in teachings in an oral environment where you're receiving teachings, and they really touch your heart, and a burning wish arises within you to transform your mind, to fulfill your potential, and to really finally become the person that you have the capacity to be. At that point, guard that mind well, nurture it, take care of it, develop it, but don't follow that emotional yearning. Rather here, be cautious and use your wisdom. And the wisdom to use, I will now share. Recognize that you are still like a young bird, a little chick, still in the nest. You need the support of that strong nest around you. And that strong nest around you is the teacher's instructions, continuing teachings, as well as your community. Don't be like a young chick who's inspired by these two wings they've discovered on either side of them, who desperately is trying to jump up onto the rim of the nest with a burning desire to take flight. Because we know if the chick is not ready, it will not turn out well. So when, for yourselves, the burning wish arises to put teachings into practice, to transform your mind, follow that, reflect well, but don't turn away from the continued activity of receiving teachings. Continue to study, gather knowledge, and at the same time reflecting well. Integrate the two. Now's not the time to abandon everything and go off on your own. Now's the time to study and reflect ever more, developing your strength, your capacity, so that when you do gain the direct advice to go it alone, to go and meditate alone, then you'll be ready. So this is advice I want to share with you, and it's advice that is commonly given by teachers to their students.
인용이 서로 자격으로 받아 아주기 변은 아주기 지딘비 자와 지게 변에 강을 토부 강을야 자가 저도 이마 말도 직마 제 장도로 지만 뭐 제제 장도로 제제네 고 자가 좀마도 강을 강산 빼 지기 기회에 지쇼레 담년다 차그선 별람사 장도로 주님에 줘봐나 자투예요 말게서 자바네 강한테네 시에게 냐요로 진짜 니네자 강리리 강리 침 맞아냐라 장도로 먹고 제고도 이 나신은 아주 다유 종제 갈에 미조한데 게네 어드베니 남조날 주고서 남산 주조는 시에냐도 진짜 마도니야 장도로 먹고 제고도 베디나신 지발도 그 장도로 제제 조베나 고페니 강을 체도 디지도 되는 제고 자사직 하고 그래서 이거 림바로 마선에 장도로 제대해서 피조서들에 강아 충하다 아니 그 조서 따다 미유들에 지게 레투야게 고비어로 받아 장도 균에 매와제 되네게 약보여 사지 조셔봐이나 되네 강한테 아니 조사들 레사들 레마도바디 용고라 되네 용마인자 당하지기 당하지 직딘비 자와나래야 강에 강하나 자야다 안지게 페니 지게 다여 종제가 미조바인데 되순이야 장도를 좀 먹고 제와지 차기도와 디나신다 지바로 와다.
And we can see illustrations in ordinary life to know that this is true. If someone visits a mountainous region where there are magnificent snow mountains, And the burning desire arises to rise up into those mountains and experience the magnificence of those mountains. And if they're set off without adequate preparation, it's not going to go well. They need a level of fitness and gear so that they can embark on such a journey. Or likewise, if someone who lives in a remote place, they hear about the remarkable machines in the world, such as aeroplanes, and maybe they see them in the distance, and they decide, I'm going to go fly one, and they somehow find themselves in a cockpit. It's not going to go so well. So just like in life, so too with our Dharma practice, preparation is essential. Preparation is essential. And when the burning wish arises to run, use that burning wish to prepare even better. And in this way, the time will come when you're ready to fulfill that aspiration.
Atisha damga la sa tendo jidu lunga yisum dudu lakbes da shung tam je damga do ngowa je jung sumba dar ngoko ba inos.
Continuing in the text. We need the kind of understanding expressed by Gompo Rinchen Lama, a disciple of Atisha. He said he had ground his body, speech and mind to dust in a single meditation session on Atisha's instructions, and thereby the understanding had now arisen in him that all the scriptures are instructions.
Da Atisha damga so na George song she bege Jiangxu Lamrim damga se Jiangxu Lamrim de so re. Jiang Jiangxu Lamrim de le ya an lobzong che ba yin de ju je de den do ji la lunga yusum du du la be se de che de le rang la di Lamrim de nyam so lobzong che ne che da ga rang la den do ji la na ga ju ge du xian den la na de dian jie de ne ge dian ji le cai ji due jie ma lang ba jie an de ji ge jie le dian do ji jie lang jie ba qi lo zhuo yang jie ya due ba ne dian do ni qia ruo ji sa da de dian do ji sai de nyam lin jie tang rin ba ji le ce de la ce da ga ran se wu da ce de le ya jiang zhuo ji song xue bei ge jiang zhuo lam ren de la lo zhuo nyam lin jie ba yin na da ce da ga ran so su ge nyam lin jie ba ne dian do ji se de ce di ran la an lunga yusumji dudu lasa lunga yusumji nyeje diba tamje ane ba bang tuyagi bangje sanyo goma top tuya du bang tuya du se orda dendo jila lunga yusum dudu la bes sanje ma ma dene du sna ha go song la go ro ji ne ge je za dene ge nyamlen je ba yi na den del ya sanje go bang top tu bi gi lunga yusum nye ba tam je bang tu ye gi top tu gu du se de de top tu wa de ko ha go song la go da de.
He said he had ground his body, speech and mind to dust in a single meditation session on Atisha's instructions, and thereby the understanding had now arisen in him that all the scriptures are instructions. So a single meditation session, this refers to a meditation session where one does not rise from the cushion. So if one rises from the cushion and goes about and then sits down, then it is a second meditation session. So now Gompo Rinchen Lama has come to understand in dependence on Atisha's instructions, which here we can understand as being the teachings on lamp on the path to enlightenment, that how he has come to understand how all the negativities of body, speech, and mind can be purified and enlightenment attained in a single session. And this he's come to understand in dependence on Atisha's instructions, namely the lamp on the path to enlightenment.
Dudu lak siudwa, dudu lak labna dangan zugi jidane da dusine dudu se dudu lak jidan 류가 있음 두두 라베사시 다들 로선데 땐도 지려 류가 있어데 두두 라베세 좋아 지난 두두 라세데 비네 도로 제 디네게 찍고 첨부 지어버이나 지게 미니마 딜레 채워지 지고지 찍파 답샤버이나 베 탈라 십시 제제는 탈라자 십시 통화 제샤버이나 두두 라바세 오래 대시 도도 찾고 첨부 통화여데 마지 지기 냄전 답전에 코파 도도 세데 지에 통화에 되게 탈라나 제샤버이나 둘둘 락세 둘세데 탈라세 둘 추추세 락세네 매바세 대시 도도 매바세네 둘 추추나 제샤바세죠 지난 두두 락세 딜 donala 난저기 베로치네 두두 락세디 디네치 고고래
So what we have here, okay, it's a little bit broken, separated in English. So we have on either side of body, speech, and mind, we have something that's one phrase in Tibetan, but a little bit before and a little bit after body, speech, and mind. Anyway, so we have here about being ground and then into dust. So this ground into dust is an unusual expression, but what it conjures to mind is a large rock that is smashed into dust by an even larger rock. So this even larger rock is used to completely obliterate an already large rock and leaving only dust. So this is what comes to mind when reading this particular phrase.
답네 매버 쇠셔라 와다 제산 도도 균이 통해 매버 쇠셔 도도 매버 쇠버라 와 제산 두두 락선 탈라 추추 쇠셔 매버 쇠셔 두두 락 다데데 가르고 것은 다 데니기 도도의 매버 쇠바나지 매버 쇠바지고 그래서 제산 두두 락선 매버 쇠바라.
And the meaning is completely obliterated or destroyed as if it never existed. So this ground into dust, we can understand then as if these obstacles or negativities are destroyed completely obliterated.
제산들 류가 있음 두두 락라도 와다. 제산들 단주 람rim Lobsang Dorje 류가 있음 류나신 탈란지 매버 쇠셔기래서 류가 있음과 매버 쇠셔기래서 가지고 고해기 녀도 류가 있음 두두 락세.
So this is good to gain some understanding of. Otherwise we may think we're being advised here to grind one's body, speech and mind into dust.
제산들 디네게 매버 쇠셔바네 디네 산주고모 토에메 류데 매버제 가 매버제 이게 매버제 디네 가요래요 말바드네. 디네 산예요 말 냠는 제스요 말바드네.
So if we destroy our body, our speech and mind, but completely obliterate it as if it was never there, what's going to attain enlightenment?
제산 디네자 류가 있음 두두 라세 류가 있음 매버 쇠거리 라고 말해. 다 가르쳐서 류가 있음이 녀바. 디바사 류유고네 사베 디바. 나요고네 사베 디바 이고네 사베 류가 있음 디바다 녀바. 아니 지그로하다 류유고네 지게 류주행한 바다 나고네 측도다 나자 돼서 안디메베게데 이유고네 다 되샤 샤랑 혼로 녀모버릭 바샤데 제바 류가 있음이 녀모 바샤데 제바스 대수기 류가 있음이 녀모 바샤데 제바 두둘라 매버서 그래서 어디고
So rather what it refers to is the complete destruction of all the imprints of negativities that we've created with our body, such as stealing and killing, with our speech, such as lying and harsh speech, and with our mind, all the afflictions, anger, attachment, all of them. All those negativities together with their seeds, destroying those completely as if they never existed.
데니게 하고 손세 데니게 장주 람림 냠림 제바이나 덴도 체다 다가랑을 류가 있음니 예바 바자다 제바 빵제 차상 빵투에기 빵투여바데 하고 손세 지송으로와 진짜 데니에자다 다 흉탐제 담가도 고와시 중 송바다로 고와시 제자 데니자 데니게 두시 하고도 안 상지 송배 송간에 진의 흉탐제 상지 유송배 송간에 진의 흉탐제 담가도 고송서 담가 임바들 소설이야 상지 고방 특별히 탑람 띵유여바 띵유여바 이 소설 냠는 제고 냠는 소설이야 상기요 고본도 탑런 띠여바디 하고 송어서 담가도 고송어서 다 담가도 고송어서 고중스는 되는 송바레스 제사다 송라탐제 담가도 고 담가도 또 봐서 디나시 고고레스 월다.
And Gompa Lama has now come to understand how this can be done, how these negativities can completely be obliviated through relying on Atisha's instructions and thereby understanding that all the scriptures are instructions. So he now knows how this can be done.
그래서 다디네 덴바림보치 셴니에서 다 덴바림보 셴네 가르송을했으네 최마도 랍네 최제루 셴도 제주 고바 준나 노와 인송바 따라서
In the words of the precious Tsongkhapa, if after studying the Dharma extensively, you feel you need to search elsewhere for a way to apply the Dharma, you are mistaken.
일단 최마도 랍네에서 다간주게 최를 더네 즉 송체다 최마고 쉬 근데 즉최 되니게 쉬에 최뒤에 소소 냠는 제발이야 멤버시 다다 망고 쉬산데 제리야 아니 당한 최제게 냠는 제오도 스세데 최지루 다 냠는 제우도 다 라마 수절 좋으나 수직 디자인에 즉 쉬고 선배게 삼당베네 디제 제바는 노라레스 제가 노트레스 월다.
If one has studied extensively but doesn't know how to integrate it and therefore thinks, oh, now I need to go and seek out another teacher to find out how to integrate, to put into practice what I've learned, then you've misunderstood. This is a mistake.
제사당 데니기 소수게 강은 장애기 흉 강은 장애기 최디 소수 냠는지 최대 다가라리 디 냠는지 제야레마도 딜레 로소 라마 짠 담가 디멘베기 샨다 담가 제제 지게 야가지 제에스가 요마레스 데니기 제 삼다나 고 노르레스라.
As a translator, that last segment I didn't say clearly, so I'll correct that and join it with what Geshe just said now. So, if someone has studied extensively and now thinks the time has come to practice, so they better seek out new teachings on what to put into practice, this is a mistake. Rather, what has been studied, that itself is what one needs to put into practice. There is nothing new, nothing separate that needs to be sought out. It's not that there's a Dharma that's just to be learnt and other that is to be practiced. What is learnt is what is to be put into practice.
지사 당하오주 되네요. 아오주를 삼다비네. 대딩하오주 된마 직친인 제게 시에디 강시에디 아오주 냠는 첼레 디라레서 다디 냠는 첼레. 지사 된마 두스 제고레 말 베지 람림 쳔마나 송셰예디 당아주 냠는자 두시는 삼다 당한 심바 된샤바 딩아주 냠는 삼로야 곰시스에디 냠는 첼레 디라레스.
So in our circumstance, what we are supposed to hear or study is teachings on the middle Lamrim. And that too is what we are to put into practice by taking what we hear, reflecting on it, and integrating and getting habituation with it.
다들 근데 자다 두스는 아주게 디마 최시하제 지금 지당 그 롭종으로 지게 추리 샤제 진냠는 제지는 어디 전다지기 시 라마제라 셰로 지다 되게 민체 어디 디자인에 라냠는 제지 내가도 다들 장아디 냠는 제매 버지다 장아야게 롭산로 제 냠는 제들 라마 산다 기라 셰지선 지라야게 삼단에 디다다 체고 말해서 나디리다.
The mistake that may well be made is one receives particular teachings, but then seeks out spiritual instructions from a teacher with a great reputation or a great title, This is mistaken. Or to think that an author with a particular reputation, those are the texts that contain instruction. This is a mistake. The teachings that one is receiving, these are the teachings that one should be integrating within oneself.
Lama je shubin damga shubine gaji nyamlen je ta tibu poya da nyomo be nyebo te nyomo be pontang ti soya ma shen ji lo so ji soya ya ma di na le she ba le lo so ji soya ska ya ma le je za di ne za ko nyamlen je ta di ko nga ju ge da tyaba chimbi chue je jam ni je jan jue sem go mo ya di ga la nyomo be pang go nyomo be nyebo dong ba yu to be she ra gom ko re se di lo sen di Dinan Masungore, Dile La Lamigi, Zene Shandachin, Dama Dila La, the member Shandachi, and Chigi Soyade, Yomarwa, Mebanzada, Donda Nimbola, Anzu Gang, Tuesum Jebe, some Turbatan, some Turbaje, Turbe, Duende, Samje, Duende Hawadelo, Gongo Grace, Madima Gombaje, Chigi Turbaroche. Duhanda Lama Sambaji Gomba Majebaji Gomiadi Lama Shandajin that Gomiaji say was Lama Shanda Seven, the notary as order.
What our teachings will present is the method to identify and abandon the afflictions, as well as the method to identify and develop habituation to virtuous minds, strengthening our virtuous minds, weakening our afflicted minds. So the varying teachings found in the Buddha Dharma really come down to that, the technique to transform one's mind through abandoning the afflictions and strengthening our habituation to virtue. Every teaching that one hears, one should be reflecting on that and continue to do so. In this way, gaining clarity and as well as clarity of the meaning and stability of that meaning. So for this reason, one continues to hear and reflect to gain again clarity of the meaning and stability in that meaning. Then one is ready to meditate. So this is the process of hearing, reflecting, and meditating.
Jeluk da gom jabgin si de gom jaegi chi de jeluk de gom jaegi de shandal jelu shendu zai ko na ta de dile lo so shanda chi ja gom jaegi zai na di no re sa chi da don da ding di de do.
So the mistake here, if we look at this line, is after studying the Dharma extensively, you think you need to then go elsewhere to find out how to apply the Dharma. That second part, apply the Dharma, put it into practice, integrate it. The mistake is to see these as separate, the gathering of knowledge and the application of that knowledge. Seeing these two as separate. That now I've gathered knowledge, but I now need to go and seek out something else. This is a mistake. The knowledge you gathered, that is what you are supposed to be applying.
Dadine yun ringbor che mangdo labjang. Dadine yun ringbor che mangdo labjang che jelu ye mishe bar che jelu jungwa na zhe xian ne jue go ba nam ngar xeba dar ma gui nong des.
And turning over to the top of page 16. Okay. If those who have studied the Dharma extensively over a long period, yet who are completely ignorant as to how to practice it, develop the wish to practice Dharma and think they must search elsewhere for instructions, then they have totally misunderstood this and err in the manner described above.
Angele Yunringbo Che Mangbo Lapsen Yamang Zugida Chiki Che, Dene Mangbo Jang, Tubache, Tune Mangbo Tuche, Che Mangbo Lab. Dene Labjan, that Chuche, Ranji Luke and Chigu, but Jimba the Machine by na, Chuche Luke, Ye Mishebar, said that Chiki Che, Jetandi, Dambo, DJ, Niba DJ, Sumba DJ, Nyamlen Jigi Rimbadi, Guinea Machine by na. Dine machine bache, dine machine du, and the girls jeg dover chunyo du, that yamle je dover chunyo du, Shen Chilia, Tanga Yamnas Kandishore, Chike, Yamnajita, Labro Chel Chevena, Denigi Zeche or Chuvena, the Shinyama Shebana, Sura Tamja, Tamado Shawa said the Hamoa Reside, not Shebata, Magoa, non tes, not a Shibu Chetamji, Kasan Sura, Damado, Shamatubadi, Digi Kinchevare, or that. How Komatu was in Hamoa and the Digi Kinchevare.
What's being presented here then is the illustration of someone who has studied extensively, perhaps receiving teachings over several years, but they haven't yet come to know the correct sequence of trainings to engage in, as well as within that correct sequence, the varying sub-steps to engage in so as to train the mind correctly. Not knowing that, they will not see the teachings of the Buddha as spiritual instructions. They will see these two things as distinct, not realizing that the teachings themselves are the spiritual instructions.
Tseje, Lama Tseje, Dizan, Yamlin Chewa, Samba Chumwaina, Jeza, Yamagi, Sunra, Yamlin Chepi, Toyo, the Tobi Dunda, the San Matan, Tobi Dunda, the Abaha Mogoare, Hamoza, Dicomta, the Hingo Mares, Jezadi, Tobare, the Tobi Dundi, Yahu, San Matan Mares, Jeza Matan, and the Manuzulia, Sanjo Kovan Tobi, Tablam Dingu, but the Hamogares, Jeza, Sanji Sunga Tamato Machawares, Jeza Sanji. Sanji Yoko to which a tablet demba de Hamoa and the Garson Samba Macheva. She's a dinner is a Hamoa and Zada, go Jeta Shingo, Mother Lama Shandaj, Chishandachi, let Yamnachi, Shandaj Sigore. Say you do the Garson, Yamachi needed to Trolatasha, the Pando Juminus and big some local cigarette, teaching the Lokta Charugures. The garages so sugi. Ingar Shebata, Sura Tamja, Damado Shawa, the Majuares, Jizan, Sanji, Dinsung Digi, Yama Chusha, Sung Digi, Sanji, Tablam Dingi Yoba, Susa Hamoares, the machine was, Ken did it.
What may well happen is that someone has heard many teachings, perhaps over an extensive period of time, but when they look at themselves, at the effect that the teachings have had on their mind, they'll say, these teachings haven't been very beneficial for me. My mind hasn't actually changed so much. So now they're likely to seek out a new teacher, wanting new teachings, hoping that this time they'll find the real thing. This time it will have the desired impact on them. But the fault would be that the meaning of the teachings that they had received, that hadn't been ascertained. The meaning of the teachings that they had received hadn't been properly or thoroughly understood. And this is because whilst they may have attended many teachings, they hadn't also reflected well. So the hearing and the reflecting, these had not both been done sufficiently. And because of this person is quite likely to see the teachings, to relate to the teachings as something different from spiritual instructions, thinking that there is something separate that they are supposed to hear that will be their practice advice, not realizing that the teachings they have been receiving, it's that they're meant to be reflecting on, it's this that they are supposed to be putting into practice. And here the grave danger is that in addition to the loss of that opportunity, is that they may reflect on that period as being a waste of time, that no benefit came from it at all, and then not blame that they hadn't engaged in both hearing and reflecting. Don't blame that, but rather blame the teacher or the topic or the teachings. That would be an error.
퇴바증이 마셔가지 될래 된들래 야내양도 삼당지 된디게다도 삼당에도 근데 되네기 안다 산지 고방 토비체도 탑람 띵기여 받아 안징어다 유비 띵기여 받아 하고 투그래 되네기 하고 마토바이나 된지 된다다 하 먹거나 아주 곰발라 자질에 곰야기 된다지 간스 곰고비 된다다 하고 하고들 삼바디가 하고 그래서 삼바디 하고 얼당보 퇴고 그래서 자당보 퇴비 된들래 야네 양도 삼제 삼바디기 안에 된다디 닝다 디레샤 삼비게 셈디 타줘봐 내야도 되네 셈디 파 델레 미치네 띵이진 띵부스야기 공고에 자고를 공고래서 제가 되네기 제가 삼비기 된다 하 먹어네 근데 곰싱 말와 모두 다 징냠네 공고도 지대다 라마산다 그 담가 쉬어진아지 공고 디 공고도 담가 쉬어진 제주변에 디 노트 차고를 더 지자디 삼비 된데 삼고고래서 삼비 된다디 하고 그래. 제가 하고네 디네 공부 그래서 제가 디네 하고 봐는 공단의 신기리에서 어떤 나디 숨고로 와.
Just before I come to what Genla said, we've heard many, would have hopefully been hearing in this presentation, talk about hearing or study, reflection and meditation. In the context where you're hearing these three, hearing, reflecting and meditating, here meditating refers to meditation with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So that's not how we generally use the word. So how we generally talk about meditation in this context is reflection. So when it's said that one should hear and reflect, then here reflection means what we generally do as meditation. Meditation in the context of hearing or study and reflection and meditation in this context always means with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, or to develop the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on the topic that you have been hearing and reflecting on. So just to make that points clear. Okay, now to come to what Geshe said. So to summarize then what is being presented here is that one needs to hear or study extensively and together with this engage in reflecting on what one is hearing teachings on. Then one will know how to integrate these teachings within oneself, and one will understand how this particular teaching fits in the greater context of one's goal, which is to achieve enlightenment. So one will understand where this particular training fits in terms of leading to one eventually attaining enlightenment. And for meditation to go well, for it to bring about the desired result, it has to come about independent on prior reflection, which itself, to go well, requires hearing or study. These three have a relationship of dependency. For meditation to go well, it has to come about independence on extensive reflection, and for reflection to go well requires extensive hearing. When one has heard or studied extensively and reflected whilst one has been doing so that one has certainty about the topic, then one is ready for meditation, because then one will have sufficient skill in the topic that one will be able to meditate on it, or first cultivate the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on that topic, and then meditate further on that topic with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight.
아주 검제세들로 검제들이야 제검다 조검세들 이순고와 제 제검세들 파 삼로다 제바지 셰럽기 리비 셰베 디제네 디제 간데 차고서 두스네 제바지 심주셰데 두셈现代演化的怕嘎些那面现代演化的粗嘎与这样密切的干的气度的的干的气干的干的气都是现在给接不接的嘞公司去接公司去个了的那个那样这个조금来有的那个这个与的是推上这个300个段的好好特别接了段的了这就都密切这个点了呀全把的写进你的中午去点接全把的写进你的怕点接呢落嘎是那么多嘎是那面吃上嘎现在上大的也怕嘎去与大上上见的了呀你把这就都点接定义真的定不出来的 띵이진 되게 유디 녀바제다 띵부서야 될야 로 전시진이 땡진에 봐 제시도 내도 고면들라 만족이 띵이지 조금 세지식으로 와대 조금 세대 제자다 디 조금 일이 곰들라 제금나 조금 일이 곰 잡나 똑바퀴 라면도 제금 제네 제바 제제 유디 내수 똑바퀴 참아직 파수 게야도 똑바퀴 라그러와 똑바퀴 세야지 제가 유 똑바퀴에도 제금 제네 똑바퀴에도 조금 제네 똑바퀴에 이가 연구로 와 제가 제금 제네 똑바퀴에도 유디기 대시 셰럽게 소소도 셰럽게 전시진이 땡지 유디를 제바지 가삼질라 디레샤 셈바 하고에 참망 예반이에도 예바지 예비 참마기도 똑바퀴 깨와래 똑바퀴 제금 진 똑바퀴 걸어 다 조금 전에 똑바퀴에라도 유디를 제주 내디기 당보네 두고 말해 지단에 유강 또부 유디를 띵이진 때는 제주도 전바된 시진이 땡지 파 제주도 내주 고문된 가sam질에 띵이진 될야 유디 또부 유디 제주도 내 투경기 땡부실래야도 네 내내기 띵이진 게야도 똑바퀴라 그러와 그러와 똑바퀴 제사 내내기 자와 제반이게 룸제 제보를 통고 그러와 제사 내내자 그 동안도 검자세도 전시진이디 배치 중부다 즉 가서 남도 차상 가세디 시바 차상 삼 가세게 삼의 균형 마다마다 기시기면서 와다 남면당 현다 전야기 차상 가신 코로 다랑 다신 될 전시신 땡고그래서도 지산 전바의 시신의 유들의 따위기 삼띵이진데 가야요 말디파 약부지파 땅진의 코 중부소고로 지산 데니스네 곰제 띵이진의 유디 다 땡부로지 내차 땡부게야도 아니 똑바시게 해야 돼. 곰 가서 똑바시게 직 제보지 두부로 와다. 제자디네 장은 곰들 제곰다 조금 제사 제곰다 조금 가르치면은 당보 튀어바지 퇴배 된들라 삼 되네 된들라 야네 양도 제바지베나 동번이 또 와라 당보 제바지야 제바지 다음에 봐 제바지네 또 그러. 된또 세베절에 될야 신의 주반에 띵이지 봐. 이게 제주의 내내 전시신 땡지 신의 주보고로. 근데 자당은 저기 곰제하더라 조금나 지금 일에 지금 제변에 전시신다 된 아니 셰랍디 제바치고래 조금 제변에 전시신이 된제 안 딘이 토네 안에 가서 딩이지 유들라 제시도 내봐도 고고래 안디네 장아 조금 자산 딩이마도 숨고 말와
The purpose for hearing teachings, reflecting on them, and then later meditating on them, is to come to gain realization on those topics. So then let's look at these terms, meditation and realization. Meditation, firstly, there are two types. There's that which is analytical meditation and that which is placement meditation. So analytical meditation is meditation where we engage in with thought, where we're using our wisdom or our knowledge, our intelligence, where we're using our intelligence to analyze, investigate, thinking for ourselves. And we do so trying to limit distraction, trying to stay undistracted from the general topic we are thinking about, we are analyzing. So this is analytical meditation. And we're doing it to try and deepen our understanding of the topic, coming to see its relevance in our life, gaining deeper conviction of it, gaining stronger familiarity with this particular meditation topic. The second type of meditation is placement meditation. This follows analytical meditation. The point in which one ceases analytical meditation is when the meaning of what you're analyzing arises with some clarity to the mind. Now you place your mind on it. And you place your mind on it with, as best as one can, single-pointed concentration. And to aid the single-pointed concentration, one uses vigilant introspection and mindfulness. And in this way, limiting drastically distraction, hopefully no distraction at all. So this is meditation. There are these two types, analytical and placement. One starts with analytical, thinking, analyzing, using one's intelligence, thinking about the topic, understanding it deeper, looking at it from perspectives, varying perspectives, gaining ever more certainty and clarity. And then to whatever degree of skill you have, some meaning arises in your mind of what you're meditating on, place your mind on it, abide on it, and do so now without analysis, without thinking. Just rest with it. This way you strengthen your habituation to what you've been meditating on. And all you use here is the meditator's friends of vigilant introspection and mindfulness, staying with the object. So that's meditation. From each of these types of meditation, realization can follow. It doesn't necessarily follow, certainly not every meditation, but realization follows from both analytical meditation and placement meditation. What distinguishes a consciousness as being one suitable to be called a realization is that that consciousness is a valid cognizer, an incontrovertible knower. This is a realization, and it arises from both analytical and placement meditation. So when one is meditating in both types of meditation, they are both analytical and placement, one needs to rely on particular friends. These are the consciousnesses of vigilant introspection, mindfulness, and wisdom. These we always need to utilize, or instead of wisdom we could say intelligence. And here we need to utilize to try and limit our distraction, in other words, to keep our mind on whatever the topic is we are meditating on. And slowly over time, as we meditate more, we'll be able to hold the object more stably, including when we're doing analytical. In analytical, our mind is moving, we're analyzing, we're thinking, but with experience, we'll be able to do so with less distraction and for longer periods. It'll still be far from single-pointed concentration, but there'll be less distraction for longer periods. So for realization to come about, one has to engage in meditation. As you've heard now in this segment, realization follows meditation, both from analytical and it follows from placement. So to gain realization, a valid cognizer which is realizing the topic, it has to be preceded by meditation. Meditation, to be effective, requires that it itself is preceded by extensive hearing and reflecting. Hence you have the sequence of hearing and reflecting, and in dependence on that, meditation. And eventually in dependence on skillful meditation, both analytical and placement, realization is attained. So this is the sequence in which we need to continuously be engaging.
지게 상기 때문에 꾸랑 삼다 현다 강나 삼마다 남도 차상까지 상기 꾸지부 삼다쇼서데 다데데 아주 두세 삼다데 잠바데 시진마된 바이나 상기 꾸지부 삼다 삼도데 아주 레투마와 제상 아주 두스당보 삼다데 갑려야 꾸직 삼다데 꾸랑 삼다데 남산 시진게 삼로데 현다 주구도 민도 따오르와다 제상 대제 덴베디게 파 두고는 덴베게 파 진제 아니 꾸랑을 따야게 탑시 전시진 일이 파 두스진의 제골마도 진의 삼로 차상 가야 마땅 삼로 가샤제네 덴베 꾸랑 따대야지 요마로 전시진 가샤나 아니 삼로 간차선 통해야지 요마로 덴베 꾸 통해야지 요마로 봐 제사디 요마로 제사 덴베 꾸랑 따베나 디랑 삼당쇼람나 땅베나 제산텔레 전시신 된제 셈 남미야 신 조도 민도 파 제바 제제 상유구랑 전되게 텔레 통되게 로디 파 세부주 고고로 와 조투바 저 되네게 네투바 세고고로 봐 제가 전시 맞됐나 디세두고 말에 가브렐레 셈디 파소 파 캠로 되네 가슴질레 무파세 당아 주시네 주비야라 고바데 미바니 무파세 니디 베바쇼 조디로 와 저 무바디나데 진와 진구에세 진와데 진화디 가셔들어와다 제산 진화디 가셔지 제산 되네서 jen shi jin de ye chen po san yu gu le ya ji po san ji ne san yu gu men bi ge so so lu le sam ta we na so so ge sem rang sam da shi sem rang xian da ga nam do cha sa nam mi cha sang ga sem ji po sam da mi sam da we na ji san sing a sem di so so ge sem ga la de gu de min du da do jen me na da do ma je na jen shi jin gu da do je ba le jen ba de shi jin gu le di me na ane sem le ne gi du mi du ha gu du ma sem le ne ma ne ba ni na ji 다다 책을 말아. 제가 din에 삼로 가야면 전시진이 가셔봐네. 나 삼로요 말. 삼로 면에 셈네 따야기. 삼로 제 가셔봐네. 가야 통해요 말아. 제가 din에서 당 저기 냠는 가르쳐베네. 전시진이디 예침 보시고 지고로 와대 제자디 먼저
I've mentioned mindfulness and vigilant introspection, so let's talk a little about these. Let's say one's engaging in concentration, developing concentration, and one is holding as one's object a Buddha image. If one just tries to hold the Buddha image and thinks that's all one needs to do, it is not going to go well. One has to make use of mindfulness and vigilant introspection. If one isn't using vigilant introspection, one will have no idea whether mindfulness is holding the object anymore. Because the purpose of mindfulness is to recall the object, to keep the object in mind. Vigilant introspection makes sure that this is being done sufficiently well. Vigilant introspection serves to ensure that the obstacles to meditation are not arising, and if they are, that they are dealt with. For example, one obstacle is that of mental excitement, where one's mind is drawn away to other objects. It's introspection that will notice that. If one's not using introspection, one will just follow one's thoughts and not even know, maybe get up from the meditation quite relaxed, think it went well. Moreover, the other obstacle to excitement, the other common obstacle other than excitement is that of lethargy. Here, the mind may well be mindful, holding the Buddha image, but it lacks vivid clarity. It may even be quite clear, but it's not vivid. So introspection is required to keep alert for these obstacles of excitement and lethargy. So that's in relation to the object of a Buddha image, which is what's usually presented in the text, but it's relevant to every object of meditation. Whatever one is meditating on in the Lamrim, such as, let's say, one is meditating on the mind itself. If one just thinks, I'm meditating on the mind, watching awareness, very relaxed, this is insufficient. One needs to have the sufficient education to understand how the object should appear. So that if the mind is the object of another mind, one needs to understand how it should appear. Otherwise, one can easily be deceived by lethargy, thinking, I'm sitting here, holding the object for quite a while, but there's a lack of clarity, a dullness that is clouding the mind, and one will be unaware of that. So therefore, one needs to have, prior to trying to engage in such meditation, engage in extensive hearing and reflecting, whatever the topic of one's meditation will be. Then just lastly, my apologies. I've gone on a little long tonight. So thank you. We'll finish there for tonight.